All right, everyone, welcome. Happy Tuesday. Hope everyone's doing okay. Had a great weekend. I survived. I didn't do anything crazy. I've been playing a lot of that Warhammer 40k battle sector, which I've almost completed my second playthrough. Again, it's only 20 missions, so it's pretty quick. But I'm at the last mission, I think, of the second playthrough. Once I finish that, then I'll go through and do another playthrough. So the first playthrough was at the standard difficulty. The second playthrough, which I'm in now, is at the increased difficulty. Then the next playthrough will be the next level up in difficulty. So I'll be doing that. And hopefully I'll have that done next week. And then next Saturday, I think it is. Next Saturday, Humankind comes out finally. So then I'll be able to play that. What else is happening? So we ended our Dungeons and Dragons campaign last week, and we're going to be playing Shadowrun. Now we've only played Shadowrun a few times, and the character I'm making, or I made, is one who is going. He's brought up in a broken, shitty household in, one of the dystopian cyberpunk massive megacorp cities, and his father was gangbanger, his mother was a prostitute and drugged up and stuff like that. Just really crappy. Parents weren't there. And he eventually found, but he tried staying away from that as much as possible as a kid. And eventually he was saved by a magical entity called the Night Hound. He's an adept, so he's got magical abilities like a magical monk sort of a thing, and he's going to be the group's sniper. So that's kind of what I'm doing there. Yeah, and we're gonna try playing this coming Sunday, although it's going to be, we haven't played this in a very, very long time. So it's really just going to be a game just to try and start getting used to the rules, the way the characters work, the way Roll20 works with the Shadowrun 5e add-on to help make things go quicker. So it'll be interesting. It's going to be slow because Shadowrun is super rules intensive. Much more to it than other games that we've played. Because there's dice pools. And dice pools, opposed dice pools, and rolling. So it's going to be super slower than it normally is, possibly. So yeah, that's what's coming up in my gaming life. That's pretty much it. Nothing else. Nothing like in my life has been going on crazy beyond that. Just trying to stay isolated, masked, and all that sort of stuff. How about you guys? What's anything happening with you guys that you'd like to share before we get started? Whoa, I don't know. All right, there's the article we're going to go over. Now, I've read something about this before, and I think this is super important, and I've talked about Second Amendment before, and it's a very important topic to understand, but also I realize that this is never, ever going to come up nor be supported because of the complete amosexualness that is a part of our country. The GDR that we have in this country, gun derangement syndrome, and as soon as you get a gun, people lose their fucking minds and they become right-wingers, and it's pretty, I mean, well, I don't say they become right-wingers, but it's much more likely that they'll be right-winger if they have a gun. So yeah, so there we go. So this is going to be interesting. It's not that long, but it'll go over kind of some of the basics of this concept that Second Amendment was there for slavery. And when you look at the actual wording of it, if effectively, if slavery doesn't exist, your quote Second Amendment rights don't exist. But that's a whole nother thing this is not going to get into, but we can get into that later if you like. All right, so this is from Slate.com, jurisprudence. The Second Amendment is not intended for black people, tracing the racist history of gun governance. This is from Today, actually. Now this is really emblematic of the whole thing, the whole militia, right-wing Proud Boys movement right here, right? The right of the people to keep and bear arms. Now, they always quote this, but they never quote the whole thing. And the founding fathers were very deliberate in the way they put this stuff together. It's a well-regulated militia being necessary to the free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Let's just go ahead and look it up. Just so you guys can see it. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of the free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Okay, so the entire right to bear arms is completely and totally predicated upon the first part of the amendment, a well-regulated militia. Okay, well-regulated. If you're not well-regulated, you're not. The right to bear arms doesn't exist. If you're not a militia, your right to bear arms doesn't exist. And if your well-regulated militianess is not necessary to the security of the free state, within this context, you don't have a right to keep and bear arms. Now, in this context, a militia is basically a slave patrol. And necessary to the security of the free state, meaning keeping down slave uprisings. That is what the Second Amendment is. It's part of the compromises made for the passing, shall we say, of the Constitution. I think a lot of this was put into the amendments. I think it's like 3/5 compromise, Second Amendment, and there's one other thing that is a part of the compromise to ensure that slavery was reinforced. Electoral college. It's those three things. It's all about racism. It's all about slavery. So we'll just so you know, there's an entire book on that, on the scholarship on this. So you can, I don't remember what it was. I think it might be, I don't know if it's this guy that wrote this, but I guess we'll see what happens. On a recent episode of Slate's legal podcast, Amicus, host Dahlia Lithwick spoke with historian Carol Anderson, professor and chair of African American Studies at Emory University, about her new book, The Second. Anderson's work explores how the Constitution's Second Amendment was not only crafted to suppress Black Americans, but was continually enforced throughout the centuries in a racist manner, leading to everything from the terrorizing of Reconstruction-era Black Americans to police killings of even legally armed Black people today. A portion of the conversation, which has been edited and condensed for clarity, has been transcribed below. So this is an interview. Dahlia Lithwick is the author of the book, The Second, right, Dahlia? Oh my God. No, Carol Anderson. Oh my God, my memory so short. So interviewer, Carol Anderson is the author. All right. I wonder if you could start by talking about what led you to this exploration of the connection between slavery, the founding, and guns. It began in 2016 with the killing of Philando Castile. In Minnesota, you have a Black man who was pulled over by the police. The officer asked to see his ID. Castile, following NRA guidelines, alerts the officer that he has a license to carry a weapon with him, but he says he's reaching for his ID. The police officer begins shooting and kills Philando Castile. You see the film of it, it is horrific. We have a Black man killed simply for having a gun, not for brandishing it, not for threatening anyone, simply for having a license to carry a gun. The National Rifle Association, that protector of the Second Amendment, goes virtually silent. And I thought, how is the NRA silent on this? Particularly when it was calling federal law enforcement jackbooted government thugs at Ruby Ridge and at Waco. On this, they're like virtually silent. Journalists began asking, well, don't African Americans have the Second Amendment rights? And I thought to myself, that's a great question, and that's what led me to this hunt. Okay, so she's got a huge question here, so just hold on. In the epilogue to your book, you put in Trevor Noah's quote from when he looks at the whole host of incidents in which police officers talk down a white man with a gun. They persuaded him to disarm and they arrest him. Noah makes the argument that the Second Amendment is not intended for black people. I think the argument is saying that the Second Amendment is in fact working exactly the way it was intended to work with respect to black folks, and that is a tool of persistence, subordination, and destruction. I just want to be super clear that you're not saying the Second Amendment is broken, that it was conceived to do a thing that it doesn't do, but you're saying the Second Amendment does precisely the thing it was crafted to do. Exactly. You nailed it. Ding, 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 ding. Now, our next question. Going right back to the colonial era, how much were guns and gun ownership really at the heart of the plantation owners who were attempting to keep control over situations in which they were simply outnumbered? Guns were central to that, as the militia was central to that. There was this massive fear of slave uprisings and revolts, of black people fighting for their freedom and willing to do whatever it took to be free. Each rumored uprising, you see the rise of legal infrastructure in terms of laws, banning the enslaved from gun possession, as well as the rise of slave patrols and the militia in order to curtail and control black people. Okay, so here they make she makes a differentiation between slave patrols and militia. Now, this is not something I have heard before, so this is this will be important. The slave patrol was a smaller unit that did the kind of regular routine going through the slave cabins, looking for contraband, looking for weapons, looking for books, looking for anything that sparked of somebody believing they could be free. The militia was there to backstop the slave patrol so that if the uprising was too large, more than the slave patrol could handle, the militia could come in. Okay. Next question. The numbers that you lay out show that 50% of all wealth holders in the 13 colonies in 1774 owned guns. That number soared if you were looking just at the South. 81% of slave-owning states had firearms, and plantations with a large number of enslaved people were 4.3 times more likely to have guns than those with few or no slaves. At the point of the birth of the Second Amendment, already it was absolutely clear that guns were in some sense essential to continuing slaveholding way of life as were the crops themselves. Guns were just that braided into it. Okay, that's the question. I'm not going to read this quote because I assume it's down here. I hate when they do pull quotes and then I have to read it again. Absolutely braided into it. You see it, for instance, in the 1739 Stono Rebellion in South Carolina. In Stono, you had a group of black men who were laborers building a road day after day, and they began figuring out what the routine and rotation of the guards were. They began figuring out where the weapons were kept. On a Sunday, they struck and killed 2 of the guards who were manning the arms. Then they took those and began this quest toward Spanish Florida because Florida had no slavery and they wanted to be free. They demonstrated that they were willing to kill or be killed in the process of getting free. On that Sunday morning, Stono's white folk were in church and the alarm bell rang. They grabbed their guns as a part of their work as the militia went after these rebellious folk, hunting them down to kill them, to make an example of them. White men having guns was the expectation by law. Black folks being banned from having access to guns was the expectation by law. After Stono, you had the 1740 Negro Act. The Negro Act defined the African-descended people as slaves, absolute slaves for those here and those not yet born. It defined what they could do and what they could not do. They could not be literate, they could not have access to guns, and they could not walk about freely. They had to be subjugated, controlled by whites. Was that, where was that? Was that a national thing, or was that? Okay, this is in South Carolina. Okay, so that it wasn't nationally. This was in South Carolina, so it doesn't state that. All right, next question. I want to talk for a minute about what you describe as a 3-part move for subjugating slaves from colonial time and into the framing of the Second Amendment and the way we talk about Second Amendment rights. You talked about the militias denying the enslaved the right to have arms, and then of the right of self-defense. That, I think, is what you would say filters into the way we still frame these questions today. So as a part of all of this, right, all the stuff that was happening then, that this was, of course, as they're talking about here, part of the legal structure, but it was also part of the culture. It was part of the social and cultural fabric of the time in the colonial times. And I talk about this in one of my posts when I'm talking about systemic and structural racism inherent in our country, right? From 1619 on, something like that, slavery was integral to the New World. It was integral to the colonies, right? Laws, cultures, society, and all that sort of stuff. Absolutely. One of the things I'm tracking historically is how this plays out over time, and whether the legal status of Black people changes that dynamic. As you move from enslaved to denizen, which was that in-between space between a slave and a citizen, to emancipated and free people, to Jim Crow, to post-civil rights African Americans, does that change? The answer is no. You don't see any significant change in the ways that access to weapons and the surveilling and the right to self-defense plays out for Black people in the United States. It was Virginia that actually developed that three-pronged mechanism of control. And we will see how well that has worked over time. When I looked at the individual right to bear arms, when I looked at the right to a regulated militia, and when I looked at those rights to self-defense over time, I'm seeing that those do not apply to Black Americans. In fact, each of those have been used against African Americans because it is the quality of anti-Blackness to define African Americans as a threat, as dangerous, as criminal, as people who need to be subjugated and controlled. Even if you are unarmed, you are still a threat. How many times have we in this current day heard of a black person being gunned down simply because they had a cell phone and somebody felt threatened because they thought it was a gun? We're seeing a Black person like Jonathan Farrell in North Carolina who had been in a car accident and was happy to see the police because he thought help was on the way, and the police gunned him down. They said, "We were afraid. He was dangerous. He was threatening. We want a bunch of fucking cowards." We see that somebody like Philando Castile, who has a licensed gun, is a threat and he's gunned down. It doesn't matter whether you have a gun or you don't, your Blackness is the threat, and it is the default threat in this society. This is also why stand your ground laws have such a strong racial bias, because it says wherever you have a right to be, because it says wherever you have a right to be. So if I'm at the grocery store, if I'm in a parking lot, if I'm in a park, and I perceive a threat, I have the right to use lethal force. Well, when Black is the default threat in American society, that perception of threat puts the crosshairs on Black people. You look at the U.S. Civil Rights Commission report on Stand Your Ground, we see that for white people who kill Black people in using Stand Your Ground, they are 10 times more likely to walk with justifiable homicide than are Black people who kill white people. We also see that white people who kill Black people under Stand Your Ground are 281% more likely to walk than white people who kill white people. Because when Black Americans are the victims in these killings, it becomes much more justifiable because of the default threat by virtue of their skin color. Yikes. All right, so this is the question. This lady here asks big questions. There was this essential moment at the Constitutional Convention. You've got 25 of the 55 delegates who are slave owners. Okay, not quite half, almost, including George Washington. The Second Amendment is a grand bargain. If it was not in and of itself this lodestar of freedom, it was a deal. I wonder if you can walk us through what the deal was and why the question of what they were going to do about slavery baked into the very framing of the Second Amendment. Yeah, so that, from my understanding, when they were looking at, so the states weren't originally going to ratify the Constitution for two primary reasons. They didn't have a religious protection clause, and of course the slavery problem, right? So that was huge. So James Madison came all the way back from France, I think it was, that 3 or 4 month ocean journey on a boat to come back here and said, all right, you fuckerheads, TJ and I will work on getting you some amendments, and part of that is going to be religious protection, free press, and all that sort of stuff, but also working on getting protections for slavery, because that is obviously a huge deal for the South, and that's kind of what she's going to be talking about here. At the ratification convention in Virginia, the Constitution has been drafted, ratification is happening, and then it stalls. Virginia is one of the big holdouts. James Madison runs back home Yep, to Virginia to try to push this thing through. He runs up against Patrick Henry, George Mason for apoplectic because Madison has put control of the militia in the federal constitution. Under federal control, they're like, the North detests slavery. If we have a slave revolt, how can we count on them to get the militia to come down here and protect us? Put the slave revolt down. We'll be left defenseless. Madison is quaking in his boots because his arguments aren't working. He's already like, look, slavery is protected. You already got the 3/5 clause. Again, that's one of the parts of the 3 parts of the compromise. You've already got 20 extra years on the Atlantic slave trade. You've already got the fugitive slave clause. But what they wanted was a Bill of Rights that would protect them. And they said, if we don't get it, we're going to push for a new constitutional convention. What Madison was afraid of, that this would hurl the U.S. back to the unworkable Articles and Confederation. Yeah, because those were garbage, because they leaned heavy into states' rights sort of a thing, when they were just a total clusterfuck. He runs to that first Congress, and he was obsessed with drafting these amendments. When you think about it, in these amendments, you get freedom of speech, the right to be illegally searched and to not be illegally searched and seized, the right to a speedy and fair trial, and the right to not have cruel and unusual punishment. Then you have the right to a well-regulated militia for the security of the state. Exactly. This thing is such an outlier in this Bill of Rights, and this outlier is because of the bribe to Patrick Henry, to George Mason, to the Southern slaveholders. This is how you contain federal control, by making sure that the states have control of the militia so that they will not be left vulnerable to the abolitionist whims, as Patrick Henry saw it, of those in Pennsylvania or Massachusetts. Now the control of the militia will be in the hands of the enslavers. So this is important to understand with, talking about the Second Amendment and slavery, and also looking at how slavery has so powerfully affected not just our country in general, its society, its culture, its laws. The wife, and stuff like that. All right, next question. I think one of the things you're saying is that the more widespread white people's ability to arm oneself to the teeth became, the more unarmed black people who cannot have arms were put into these untenable lose-lose situations. Absolutely. You can see the asymmetry in the access to firepower. There was an 1841 riot in Cincinnati where the white people were coming to basically burn down and kill the black community. They were moving toward the neighborhood, but black folks had guns and they shot back. The rioters were just like, what just happened here? They have the audacity to shoot at us simply because we were trying to kill them? Yeah, that was pretty messed up, right? Ugh. The hubris and a sense of entitlement of white people. They came back with a cannon, the vintage mass murder machine. The police finally move in, but what they did was disarm the black community, thinking that disarming black folks will calm white folks down. The rioters will now be pleased that the black people don't have their guns. Instead, the slaughter happened because it was so clear that the police were on the white people's side and that there would be no consequences for their killings of black people. Yeah, and this is this is important. If the police were actually here to support and protect the people, and they actually supported people of color against the vicious slaughter of rogue white people, our culture and our society would be very, very different. We see that asymmetry again happening after the Civil War. In Colfax, Louisiana, where there is an election and white supremacists because Republicans won. These Democrats, who are the white supremacist party at the time, then were going to attack the seat of democracy in Colfax, Louisiana, and oust those who won the election. The black militia was called upon to protect this bastion of democracy, but they were outgunned. They didn't have enough ammunition, and they were overwhelmed by the number of white fighters. It was a slaughter. About 100 black people were killed, many of them after they had surrendered because white attackers had set the courthouse on fire where the black militia had taken up to protect themselves. And that tradition of, okay, I'm not going to go there. Yes, burning people alive. That's what they do. This case goes all the way up to the Supreme Court as a look at the constitutionality of the Third Enforcement Act, which was the act to deal with the domestic terrorism of the Ku Klux Klan. The court ruled that piece of legislation applied only to state action, not to private action, because the slaughter, that domestic terrorism by these private groups, was fine. What the? And then we had the Hamburg massacre shortly thereafter, which again showed the disparity, asymmetry in access to weaponry. President Ulysses S. Grant was beside himself. He said, what these states all have in common is not Christianity, it's not civilization, it is the right to kill Negroes. I remember thinking, wow. Okay. Those are the excerpts. Down below, I shared the link to you already. If you want me to share it again, let me know. But there's the entire talk down here below if you want to listen to it. How long is it? It's 55 minutes. Ooh, sounds like cool. Sounds pretty cool. So there you go. That is the first article. It's pretty cool. I think I have a post started on this sort of a topic, second minute, so I have to add this to it. Good stuff in there. All right. Questions, comments, suggestions on that before we move on? Anything? Second Amendment stuff? All right. Next. This is from May this year. Bible passages justifying homophobia have been woefully misinterpreted. Damning study finds. Now, I'll say this for me. Gay marriage is what got me into politics originally. And there was only one book that really convinced me that... gave me a convincing argument from Christianity. Let me find this. Matthew finds God and the Gay Christian. Amazing, amazing book. Here we go. If you want an amazing book on this topic, Christianity and homosexuality, this book is excellent. It's written the way I would have written it if I, did this sort of research. The guy who wrote this, Matthew Vines, he is gay and he is a evangelical, and he went to school for this sort of a thing. Got his degree in it, and so on. It's a really good book. Really good book. Should go and drag this over here. All right. Let's see what they have to say. Picture of the Pope. Claims that the Bible condemns same-sex relationships are based on misinterpretations and mistranslations, a groundbreaking theological study has found. The report, titled Christian Objections to Same-Sex Relationships, an Academic Assessment, saw 20 biblical scholars, theologians, ethicists, evolutionary biologists, and sociologists come together to disprove the foundations upon which the Catholic Church built its anti-LGBT plus stance. The 80-page study, which was conducted by the Wingard's Institute for Catholic Research, should serve as the final nail in the coffin of biblical and other arguments justifying homophobia, the press release said. The report found that passages in Leviticus, often cited as the most explicit condemnations of homosexuality, have actually been mistranslated. Actually, I had considered writing a book just talking about Christianity in general, and the second of which would be going over stuff more like this, but like the Leviticus one is like, a man shall not lay with a man as a woman. And I think if you really take into account, the history, how I would translate that, or interpret that, is if a man is to lay with a man, he shouldn't lay with a man as a woman. He should lay with another man as a man. This is about false, kind of bearing false witness, not being honest with your relationship, right? So if you're going to be with a man as a man, be with a man as a man. Don't try and pretend necessarily that you're a woman, or fake it, get out of it, or whatever, right? Be honest and be open. Because like in these days, especially in the ancient Roman Empire, the relationships between two guys was seen as the highest form of love, even above that of a man and a woman. I mean, it was crazy. You know, those Romans, right? Woo! All right. In fact, those passages only condemn incest and adultery between men. So incest and adultery. While no mention is made of sexual relationships between women, the study found. Prohibiting incest and adultery between men suggests that same-sex relationships outside the forbidden category were actually viewed as permissible. Most definitely, because they were very common in those days. The scholar found that consensual and faithful same-sex relationships are not condemned anywhere in the Bible, and natural sciences firmly attest that homosexuality is a natural variation within the range of human sexuality. And it's not just human sexuality. That's another part of this argument, right? Well, it's not natural. Well, homosexuality is found in many, many species, like whales, elephants, dolphins, penguins. I mean, a whole bunch of different species. So it's very, very much a natural part of the diverse sexual and relationship arrangements within mammals. Presenting their findings, the scholar called on Pope Francis and the Vatican to take urgent action to change church teaching on same-sex relationships. They specifically criticized the Vatican's recent decision to ban blessings for same-sex couples, arguing that the ruling vilifies same-sex couples. Scholars urged the Vatican to set in motion a transparent, independent consultation process on their findings in a bid to move forward in an evidence-based way. Okay, cool. Mary McAleese urges the Catholic Church to open its eyes and ears, open its hearts, and stop being a bunch of bigoted asshats. Pretty please. The report has been endorsed by more than 60 high-profile academic scholars from across the world, including former Irish President Mary McAleese. McAleese, a Catholic who has campaigned tirelessly for the Catholic Church to change its teaching on LGBT plus issues, said the study should change, probe, and interrogate church teaching in the area of homosexuality. She said the people of God have needed this to help convince a blinkered magisterium to open its eyes and ears to see and hear the damage inflicted on good people, young and old, by teachings that run counter to science and counter the love of the Creator. Scholarly work of the Wingards Institute brings hope where it is needed. McAleese's sentiments were echoed by Reverend Krzysztof Karamza, a Polish Catholic theologian who said the report is a gift and a commitment to the church. Okay. Yeah, also just above. Okay, the study is up here too. I'll go ahead and throw that in here so you guys have easier access to it. It's 80 pages. There you go. Go back down here. All right. Theologians, aware of their scientific and Christian responsibility, address themselves to helping the judgment of the church to mature. By presenting the progress of the humanities and biblical sciences, the signatories perform an act of intellectual honesty and trust in the church. The Catholic Church has held firm on its positions for decades that homosexuality is intrinsically disordered, despite repeated calls from church members to reevaluate. Some had hoped that the Catholic Church would gradually begin to relax its rules when Pope Francis became leader of the institution in 2013. But while the pontiff has taken a slightly more moderate approach to the LGBT plus community, change has remained a distant dream. There was a widespread disappointment among LGBT plus Catholics in March when the Vatican's Congregation for the Doctrine of Faith issued a statement banning priests from blessing same-sex couples. In a highly controversial statement, the CDF said God loves all of his children, but claimed he cannot bless sin. You know, like, judge not lest ye be judged yourself, right? It's not our job. Okay, whatever. So there you go. If you want to learn more about that, the report is over there. The links are to it. That book to it by Matthew Vines is amazing. It's the only form of scholarship that I found that made a good case for Christian support for gay marriage. Amazing book, Matthew Vines. And you can even see his video online of him admitting that he is gay in front of his entire church. It's powerful. I don't know if he might get buried now because he's been super busy. Okay. Yeah, you might have to search for it. Okay, there you go. All right, any questions, comments, suggestions on that? Anything, anybody? No? All right, quiet. Okay. So next, yeah, we're covering quite the diverse set of topics here today. I'm normally not quite this diverse, but it's good. It's good. Lots of new stuff popping in. All right, this is from Ars Technica. I haven't been following them for a long time, but Ars Technica is a great site for technology and that sort of a thing. So nuclear power's reliability is dropping as extreme weather increases. This is from July 24th this year, so it's fairly recent. As you guys know, my policies, it does. I'm kind of curious where it goes. Billy Bear, it's good to see you. Hope you're doing okay today. As you guys know, I'm not for nuclear power for lots of reasons, and this is going to be kind of one of those reasons as well. All it takes is one thing to happen, and the surrounding area is a fucking nuclear wasteland. So hopefully this will be a great article, and then I may have to add it to my policies as well, just as a part of a reference as well. All right. Comprehensive analysis shows that warmer temperatures aren't the only threat. It's a good picture. Nice reflection there. Nice clear sky. Lights. Good stuff. Good. I'm good. I'm very good. Yep. I'm about to finish my second playthrough of one of my games. Another game comes out next week. Yeah, I'm doing good. I'm awake. I'm here reading. Let's see. With extreme weather causing power failures in California and Texas, it's increasingly clear that the existing power infrastructure isn't designed for these new conditions. Past research has shown that nuclear power plants are no exception, with rising temperatures creating cooling problems for them. Okay. Now, a comprehensive analysis looking at a broader range of climate events shows that it's not just hot weather that puts these plants at risk, it's the full range of climate disturbances. I watched a video today on Tesla's new thing. Tesla? It's Tesla. That they are just starting to put out a virtual power plant software where they're basically going to take the power walls and eventually the power packs from the Tesla cars and put them on one giant grid to help provide electricity, not just for your car, not just for your house, but also for the neighborhood as well. So that's a cool thing. So turning in their solar tiles and then their power wall and solar panels and then their car all together into one thing, so that you can essentially provide a microgrid to ensure that you have a way of storing sustainable energy and providing power to the grid when you need to. I remember this aspect covered in that long article from 2017. Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't either. This is the first time I've heard of something like this, and this is important. I hadn't considered it from this aspect. So, yeah, hopefully this will be good. Ars Technica is a great site, so hopefully this will be really informative. Be just one more reason to stay the hell away from nuclear power. All right. Heat has been one of the most direct threats, as higher temperatures mean that the natural cooling sources, rivers, oceans, lakes, are becoming less efficient heat sinks. However, this new analysis shows that hurricanes and typhoons have become the leading causes of nuclear outages, at least in North America and Southeast Asia. Precautionary shutdowns for storms are routine, so this finding is perhaps not so surprising, but other factors like clogging of cooling intake pipes by usually abundant jellyfish populations are a bit less obvious. I could just second the wife is. Okay, there we go. Heat has been one of the most direct threats. I just read that. Okay. Overall, this latest analysis calculates the frequency of climate-related nuclear plant outages is almost 8 times higher than it was in the 90s. The analysis also estimates that the global nuclear fleet will lose up to 1.4%, or about 36 terawatts of its energy production in the next 40 years, and up to 2.4%, or 61 terawatts by 2081, 2100, assuming there's anything left. Yeah, I've been on YouTube. I've seen a bunch of videos on bunkers, rich people in bunkers, or even just normal people and creating bunkers and stuff like that. I saw one today of a like probably $100 million bunker project for millionaires that housed 75 people, something like that. It's like, I don't know, it was huge. It was a huge amount of money. And it was already built in an existing missile silo, and part of what they had for power, I guess they did have some hydrothermal, but they also had significant amount of oil and gas and that sort of stuff backup. I would want to at least, use geothermal for most of the power, because it should work pretty well. So that was just interesting. Heat, storms, drought. The author analyzed publicly available databases from the National Atomic Energy Agency to identify all climate-linked shutdowns, partial and complete, of the world's 408 operational reactors. Unplanned outages are generally very well documented, and available data has made it possible to calculate trends in the frequency of outages that were linked to environmental causes over the past 30 years. The author also used more detailed data from the last decade, 2010 to 2019, to provide one of the first analyses of which type of climate events had the most impact on nuclear power. While the paper doesn't directly link the reported events to climate change, the findings do show an overall increase in the number of outages due to a range of climate events. The two main categories of climate disruptions broke down into thermal disruptions, heat, drought, and wildfire, and storms, including hurricanes, typhoons, lightning, and flooding. In the case of heat and drought, the main problem is lack of cooling water, or in the case of drought, enough water at all to cool the reactor. However, there were also a number of outages due to ecological responses to warmer weather. For example, larger than usual jellyfish populations have blocked the intake pipes of some reactors. Yeah, okay, so this is going to be a big deal, not having enough water. If they designed these as closed loops, that would kind of reduce this problem for a while, but eventually they're going to need more water. So closed loop design would be better for this sort of a thing. Storms and wildfires, on the other hand, caused a range of problems, including structural damage, precautionary preemptive shutdowns, reduced operations, and employee evacuations. The time frame of 2010 to 2019, the leading causes of outages were hurricanes and typhoons in most parts of the world, although heat was still a leading factor in Western Europe, France in particular. While these represented the most frequent causes, the analysis also showed that droughts were the source of the longest disruptions and thus the largest power losses. The author calculated the average frequency of climate-linked outages went from 0.2 outages per year in the 1990s to 1.5 outages in the time frame of 2010 to 2019. Retrospective analysis further showed that for every 1 degree Celsius rise in temperature above the average temperature between 1951 and 1980, the energy output of the global fleet fell about 0.5%. Okay. Retrofitting for extreme weather. This analysis also shows that climate-associated outages have been the leading cause of disruptions to nuclear power production. Other causes of outages have only increased 50% in the same time frame. Projecting into the future, the author calculates that if no mitigation measures are put into place, the disruptions will continue to increase through the rest of this century. Okay. All energy technologies, including renewables, will be significantly affected by climate change, writes Professor Jacopo Buongiorno, who is not involved in the study. In an email to Ars, Buongiorno is the TEPCO Professor of Nuclear Science and Engineering at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT. And he co-chaired the MIT study, The Future of Nuclear Energy in a Carbon-Constrained World. The results are not surprising. Nuclear plants can experience unplanned outages due to severe events, hurricanes, tornadoes, or heat waves, the frequency of which is increasing. Although there's relatively little research on the topic of climate effects on nuclear power, specifically, some projects are already underway to adapt nuclear plants to the changing climate. For example, the U.S. Department of Energy recently invested in a project researching methods to reduce the amount of water needed by nuclear facilities, advanced dry cooling. Oh, okay, that's interesting. Okay. Existing nuclear plants are already among the most resilient assets of our energy infrastructure, writes Buongiorno. The current fleet is adapting to rising sea levels for those plants located in areas at potential risk of flood and the increasing intensity of storms. New nuclear reactor technologies will be even more resilient, as in many instances they are being designed to be dry-cooled, not using river or ocean water for rejecting heat to the ambient, as well as capable of operating in island mode, disconnected from the grid, ready to restart before other large power plants in the event of a blackout. Other nuclear technologies such as pebble bed, molten salt, and advanced small reactors may also provide more climate-resistant solutions, but these are still under development. In general, the strict regulations in place for nuclear reactors make incorporating newer technologies particularly difficult. Even as these technologies become available, it will likely require further reactor downtime to install new components, so at least in the short term, even nuclear power will likely contribute to the increasing frequency of climate-related power shortages. Okay, so I was hoping for a lot more examples of, problems that were being caused by it, but this was still okay, still useful for another, kind of knock against that. And there we go. Yeah, that article on that video I watched on Tesla's virtual power plant thing was really, really cool. That's some way we can work towards integrating a whole bunch of people who have their sustainable energy, have it stored in batteries of various sorts, and then putting it into the and being able to use it. That's going to be huge. Microgrids are the future. It's going to be a large part of our future. You have to go and read that report and see if it says anything else. Is there a link to the report in here? Okay, let's go and take a look at this real quick. Yeah, there's more interesting stuff in there. Go and throw that in here. Okay, this is just 8 pages, not too big. All right. I think I may have read this one here before. I don't remember, though. Looks somewhat familiar. Not sure. All right, so this next one is on UBI, Universal Basic Income. I don't know who this guy is. He seems like an engineer of sorts. An engineering argument for basic income, using fault-tolerant design in critical life support systems. Post is also in Spanish and Czech due to volunteer work of translators. Awesome. Oh, optional audio is available too. That's cool. Good for him. Before studying engineering, if someone asked me what 1 + 1 is, I would have said 2. Now I'd say I'm pretty sure it's 2, but we'd better make it 3 just to be safe. I went to college at the Colorado School of Mines to become an engineer. I switched majors to psychology after 2 years, but I will always think of things from the perspective of engineering for the same reason I originally pursued it. What matters is reality and what works and doesn't work. I love math and I love science, but I really love how engineering takes that math and science and applies them to make and improve real things. Being an engineer is about being a realist. It's about pragmatism over theory. It recognizes that the map is not the territory. So here's one rule all engineers know, and it's Murphy's Law. Whatever can go wrong will go wrong. Knowing that, failure therefore has to be a part of the design. We don't want things to fail, but we know they will because they always do. So what should be done? The answer is fault tolerance. In the event of component failure, a system should be designed to continue functioning either as normal or at a reduced capacity. And when some system does fail entirely, it should be designed to return to 100% operating capacity quickly. Catastrophic failure should always be avoided, especially for mission-critical systems, and even more especially when lives are at stake. Think planes. If a single component fails, it shouldn't bring the entire plane down. There are ways of avoiding that by incorporating things like redundancy, so that multiple backup systems have to fail in order for the entire system to fail, and edge cases so that we consider in advance the full range of possibilities, however rare their occurrence may be. Because we know things will fail, we should design them in such a way that when they fail, lives are protected first and foremost, wherever lives are at risk. In elevators, it would be bad design for them to plummet with the loss of power. Instead, they utilize fail-safe design where power keeps the brakes off and loss of power activates them. They fail into a safe state, ergo fail-safe. Okay, so what does this have to do with basic income, you may be asking? I'm sure we here have an idea. It's simple. We know that our primary income distribution system fails. It fails all the time. It's called losing your job. We have a safety net designed to catch people when it fails, but that system is really poorly designed and also fails all the time, at which point the people can and do die as a result. We have engineered a life support system without fault tolerance, and we did it because engineers didn't design the system. Politicians did. Corrupt dumpster fire head politicians. Special interests did, and it's built on antiquated job-centric moralism instead of contemporary life-centric realism. Okay, cool. Realism demands that we recognize human beings need money to live within a system of private property that withholds legal access to basic resources on the condition of having money. Yep, or qualifying for government assistance. It is mission critical for people to have money to spend when they need on what they need to live. So just make sure they have it by supplying it to everyone unconditionally. Okay? Here's how UBI would introduce fault tolerance into our life support system we call the economy. First, everyone starts with the money they need to live. We wouldn't create a life support system on a space station where in order to receive oxygen, one would need to work to obtain it. Life support is life support. Dead people can't work, so make sure people get oxygen so they can stay alive. Living people will do much better, would do much more work than dead people. Next, everyone who works for additional money would be utilizing redundancy. They would have two streams of income. They did multiple jobs or began earning passive incomes of some kind. It would be multiple streams of income. Instead of a one-engine plane, they could have 2 or 3 more engines, keeping them in the air. If one engine was lost, they'd have others. And because of UBI, they'd never have 0. Yeah, and I came up with kind of a system of my own when I was delving into stuff like this, and that's kind of where I said it, like, not so much as an income thing, but I reformulated everything as a part of resource access levels, so that everyone had, a level 1 of resource access, which covered housing, food, clothing, transportation, internet, phone, and that sort of stuff, all the basic stuff that you need to live. So everyone had that. And if you had more money, and if you're making more money, you could, save it and increase your basic access level another level or something like that. Yeah, making sure everyone has access to all of the stuff that they need is important. As we go into Maslow's hierarchy of needs and biopsychosocial model about the harm that it causes when people don't have access to all the necessities of life. because UBI would mean incomes would never fall to zero. Anyone who ever loses their job would fall to the level of the UBI instead of the severe poverty of having zero. We can think of it as what engineers call graceful failure. Graceful failure means that a failure does not result in catastrophic failure, sickness or death, and instead fails in a way that protects people or property from injury or damage. With UBI, people who lose their jobs would fall to a state above the poverty line, meaning that failure would never result in poverty. This builds resilience into the system. People who still have something instead of nothing are more able to get back up again and find new employment. They're also more likely to take risks, secure in the knowledge that failure won't result in death or homelessness or anything like that. There is a belief we have a safety net that protects all those who lose their jobs. This belief is a myth. It helps some people, but before the pandemic even hit, 13 million people in America were already living in poverty, entirely disconnected from all federal assistance programs. The best functioning program is SNAP, which reaches 3 out of 4 people in poverty and lasts for 3 months every 3 years. What the fuck? SNAP lasts for 3 months every 3 years? That's fucking insane. Can anybody verify that? That's just ridiculous. The worst is TANF, which varies by state, and in Louisiana, reaches 4 out of 100 families in poverty. Disability assistance reaches 1 out of every 5 Americans with disabilities, and the average waiting time to qualify is 2 years. Housing assistance reach 1 out of 4 Americans who qualify. Unemployment insurance reaches 1 out of 4 unemployed people. Okay, this is just insane. Super insane. See the pattern? Most of our safety net programs tend to exclude 3 out of every 4 people who need them. Because of UBI's universality, 0 out of 4 people will be excluded from assistance because they'd already have it, and many wouldn't even need any additional assistance beyond their UBI because it would provide more than many existing supports even offer. This leads me to another engineering element of system design: bang bang versus proportional control. Okay. Bang bang design is like the way thermostats. In Cali, general assistance is 3 months per year. Oh, really? That's insane. Insane. They don't help people as long as they need it. They just give them a little handout here and there just to say that, hey, see, we did our part. Ugh. Yeah, it's just ridiculous. Bang bang design is like the way thermostats typically work. You set the temperature at what you want, and when the environment gets too far above or below that setting, bang, the air conditioning or heat kicks on to bring the room back to the desired temperature, and then bang, it turns off again. Okay. Proportional control means that the further a system strays from the desired setting, the more force is applied to bring it back. It doesn't wait to do anything until a point is reached. It adjusts at all points. Yeah, my policies are kind of like this, right? So I have, I use progressive basic income. That's called cash aid. Okay. I use progressive basic income, so those at the bottom get more, and those towards the top don't get anything. Like I have $85,000 as my cutoff, and then as you get above $85,000, taxes go up more to try and bring food stamps all year long. Okay, yeah, that's the way it should be. That's just crazy. You have all these disparate programs, and they don't all work together. They don't all solve the problem holistically, and that's fundamentally the problem, as this guy's trying to point out here. The problem isn't solved. People are suffering horrifically, and there's no reason for it. Okay. Right now, our safety net uses bang bang design. If you lose your job, bang, the safety net turns on, and that is if you satisfy the necessary conditions, and you may or may not still fall to your death because of the holes in the net. If you do get help, it's temporary, and then bang, no more help. Or if you don't satisfy the conditions, bang, no more help. However, UBI would be proportional control design. Everyone receives UBI, but everyone also pays for it in varying amounts depending on income and or consumption. So if your income goes down for any reason or to any degree, you pay less for UBI, meaning your disposable income boost is increased in economic terms. This is called counter-cyclical fiscal policy. During good times, when most people are employed, you might be paying $1,000 a month in taxes to receive $1,000 a month in UBI, meaning a 0%, $0 per month income boost due to earning over 6 figures. If your hours are cut, you might then pay $500 per month in taxes to receive $1,000 per month in UBI, meaning $500 per month income boost. And if you lost your income entirely, you'd pay 0 in taxes and receive $1,000 per month in UBI, meaning that $1,000 per month income boost. Okay, so this is kind of elegant the way he's doing this, but my issue ultimately is that, okay, that might be acceptable. I'm a bit wary of this because it's just a matter of, one congressperson getting rid of that one thing of, proportional taxation, and rich people have another advantage taking this money. It's a small amount of money, but still, it's one more amount that they can invest and increase the level of inequality. But it's pretty cool what he's doing here. Thus, UBI would respond proportionally to income loss, creating much more stability in incomes than any bang-bang design could provide. Most biological systems, such as utilize such proportional control because evolution discovered that it tends to work best when it comes to life support. This is the engineering argument for UBI. We're all living, breathing human beings, and we all need money to obtain food and housing and everything else, and we need to stay alive. And everything else we need to stay alive. The best way to make sure we all stay alive then is to make sure we always have a basic amount of money, and the best way to make sure we always have a basic amount of money is to provide it to everyone at all times, so it's always there, no matter what. Any argument to the contrary is not sound from an engineering perspective. Failure is inevitable. There will always be mistakes made. There will always be job loss. There will always be safety net failures. There will always be disasters. There will always be pandemics. This is from... Okay, when did you write this? Okay. Therefore, we should always have basic income so that when these things happen, we're less likely to die and more likely to scrape ourselves off and get right back up again. Unconditional basic income is how to engineer resilience into our social and economic systems. Okay, and this is from, when was this from? Okay, 2020. All right, so this is from late last year. Okay, so yeah, so we probably haven't gone over this. Yeah, this is pretty cool. What does he say? Okay, so $1,000 in taxes to receive $1,000 per month income. Okay, that's pretty cool. It's pretty elegant. All right, there we go. Questions, comments, suggestions on that for UBI? Oh no. A little better. All right. UN criticizes UK for failure to redress colonial-era land grab in Kenya. This is from August. This is from today. 2 clans brutally evicted to make way for tea plantations owned by white settlers are seeking reparations for rights violations. Looks like some of the people that were evicted, I think. 1910. Cat is being demanding. Ugh, I know, right? Cats. Ugh. A man affected by the eviction from Carrico County in the Kipsigis and Tulai communities by the British Army remember his relatives who were forced off their land. Okay. Only half listening. It's okay. All right. The British government has been criticized by the UN for a lack of resolution over colonial era crimes committed in Kenya. Gotta love British and American imperialism globally. Good stuff. 6 UN special rapporteurs have written the government expressing concern over its failure to provide effective remedies and reparations to Kipsigis and Talai peoples. The Kipsigis and Talai clans of Kericho County, Kenya, were brutally evicted by the British Army between 1895 and 1963 to make way for lucrative tea plantations owned by white settlers. Having never received any form of redress for the human rights violations they suffered, they filed a complaint to the UN calling for an investigation in 2019. Lawyers say that the UK pursued an intentional policy of violent displacement after realizing the land in Kericho County was suited to growing tea, and argued the treatment of these Kenyans amounted to a gross violation of human rights. Yeah, countries need to start looking at the horrors they have inflicted globally, and we need to start looking at globally paying reparations for every single country we have, Europe has messed with over the past, several hundred years. Because, again, it's not that Central South America, Africa, India, Middle East are poor. It's just that the West keeps stealing all their stuff and engaging in genocide. So if we really want to start dealing with racism and slavery and that sort of stuff, countries need to start looking at their histories and start apologizing, teaching it, and start throwing reparations around. Starting with the Crown Land Ordinance of 1902, 36,000 hectares, 90,000 acres of land in Kericho is alleged to have been taken from the Kipsigis and Talai and given to white Europeans. The land is now occupied by various British and multinational tea corporations. Of course it is. The British government was given 60 days to respond to allegations and urged to take necessary measurements to stop the violations and prevent their recurrence before the communication was made public, but it has not responded. In a new report, the UN has demanded that the British government must now provide responses and settle the matter with the victims, many of whom are still alive. The rapporteurs specifically expressed concern about failures to adopt measures to establish the facts and truth about the circumstances, to provide public apologies, including an official acknowledgement of their plight, and... Okay. And, okay, so this is really crappy editing. Come on, people. And, okay, and including an official acknowledgement of their plight and to plan for reparations to victims and their descendants, maybe? The UN rapporteurs have told the British government that reparation should include measures in the areas of restitution, compensation, rehabilitation. One of the victims of the land grab, Dixon Setiene, said his people had been fighting for their voices to be heard for many years. If the British government think we will forget what they did, they are wrong, he said. It has been very difficult to feel ignored for so long for the terrible things they did to us. We cannot feel free until they acknowledge what they did. This is the only way forward. Okay, that's fair. So yeah, I've got children carrying firewood in Kericho County, Kenya, with tea plantations stretching toward the horizon. Yeah, kids here still carrying their own wood, and there's tea out here. It's ridiculous. Rodney Dixon, QC, and Joel Kimutai Bosek, who represent victims, said the findings in the report were a positive step in the right direction. Our clients have suffered their whole lives because of the appalling crimes committed decades ago, and they continue to suffer today, they said in a statement. They deserve justice, accountability, an apology, and reparations as recommended. It's time to resolve this matter constructively in the interest of all parties. The Kericho County Governor, Paul Chepkwony, who had fought for reparations for years, said he was pleased with the ruling. It brings me hope to know that this terrible shared history between Kenya and Britain is not being forgotten or rewritten. The British government must apologize for the crimes they committed and meet with us to discuss reparations, he said. Yeah, the issue is going to be here is that if Britain acknowledges it and does something about it, it will open up the fucking flood doors for every other country in the world, and the second emerging countries, second, third world countries, Africa, Middle East, Central and South America, to start going for reparations. I mean, the horrors inflicted by British imperialism globally is just insane. Much like the United States as well. The United States is probably going to be against this as well because it opens that flood door for the United States to be held accountable for the horrors we have inflicted globally, which is going to be just horrific. When The Guardian contacted the Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office (FCDO), a spokesperson said that the UK government has already recognized that some Kenyans were subject to torture and other forms of ill treatment at the hands of the colonial administration, as set out in 2013 by then Foreign Secretary William Hague. They referred to the statement they said was part of the settlement of claims made by Kenyan citizens who had lived through the emergency period and the Mau Mau insurgency from October 1952 to December 1963. In 2013, following the Mau Mau settlement, the UK government agreed to construct a memorial in Nairobi recognizing victims of torture and ill treatment. Okay, but did they pay shitloads of money, though? This memorial, unveiled in September 2015 in Uhuru Park's Freedom Corner, was the result of close collaboration between the British High Commission and the Mau Mau War Veterans Association, the government of Kenya, the Kenyan Human Rights Commission, the Nairobi Governor's Office, the National Museum of Kenya, they said. In a statement, the FCDO spokesperson said that promoting and protecting human rights around the world is a cornerstone of UK's foreign policy. That is fucking laughable. Yeah, no. United States, Britain are some of the largest violators of human rights globally. We regret that these abuses took place and that they marred Kenya's progress towards independence. They had it. No, you're not. You're just regret and are annoyed the fact that you're being held accountable. People are attempting to be held accountable for it. All right, so that's a thing. Guess we'll see what happens there. That's most of what I had planned. I've got other stuff. Well, I've got this here too. Like one more, and then we'll go to stuff that I've had saved up for a while. All right. Next. India's COVID-19 disaster may be turning into an even bigger global crisis. Now, obviously, the Delta variant, which is from India, has made it here and it's spreading across the world. It's one of the most infectious and damaging variants of COVID-19. So, yeah, it's and it's only going to get worse because there's I mean, they don't have great access to sanitary stuff at hospitals and doctors, and even access to vaccines. So it's just gonna get worse and worse and worse. This is from May 12th, so this is a few months ago. Okay, so this isn't quite as interesting then, because it's a few months ago. May, June, July, 2 months ago, not so bad. High in the thin air of Mount Everest base camp in Nepal, Sherpas and climbers used to walk freely from one group of tents to another, holding gatherings, singing, and dancing. Now, the Sherpas who escort climbers to the summit have a new job, enforcing unofficial social distancing rules. Climbing Everest is always a matter of life and death, says Funuru Sherpa, but this year the risks have been doubled due to COVID. Already dozens of people with suspected COVID-19 have been evacuated by helicopter. The outbreak reflects a broader one across Nepal, which shares a long, porous border with India. Daily confirmed cases in the Himalayan nation increased 30-fold from April 11th to May 11th, when 9,300 infections were recorded. It's a grim omen of how India's devastating COVID-19 crisis may be turning into an even bigger global emergency. Yeah, because the borders are so, open, and they don't have the ability to fight it very well, and people go there from all across the world, and then they leave. It's just going to spread as it already has the infection everywhere. As countries around the world airlift oxygen, vaccines, and medical supplies to India, they are also closing their borders to the world's second most populous country. It may already be too late. The B1617 variant of the virus, first detected in India, has now been found in 44 countries on every continent except Antarctica, including Nepal, the US, and much of Europe. Scientists say it could be more infectious and better at avoiding humans' immune system. On May 10th, the World Health Organization declared it a variant of global concern. And because only around 0.1% of positive samples in India are being genetically sequenced, there may be others that have emerged, says Amita Gupta, Deputy Director of the Johns Hopkins University Center for Clinical Global Health Education. Yeah, this lack of ability to test the gene sequences is going to be a big problem. The true scale of the COVID-19 outbreak in India is impossible to accurately quantify. Officially confirmed daily cases are plateauing at just under 400,000, but remain higher than any other country has seen during the pandemic. Experts warn that the real numbers are far bigger and may still be rising fast as the virus rips through rural India, where 2/3 of the population lives and where testing infrastructure is frail. The University of Washington's Institute for Health Metrics and Evaluation estimates the true number of new daily infections is around 8 million, the equivalent of the entire population of New York City being infected every day. Official reports say that 254,000 people have died in India since the start of the pandemic, but the IHME estimates the true toll is more than 750,000, a number researchers predict will double by the end of August. Since the beginning of May, dozens of bodies have washed up on the banks of the river Ganges, with some villagers saying they were forced to leave the dead in the water amid soaring funeral costs and shortages of wood for cremation. Yikes. And then it's spreading into the water too. That's not good. Experts say that the crisis was entirely preventable and that rich countries could have done more to prevent it. True statement. The pandemic has once again highlighted the extreme international inequality in access to life-saving vaccines and drugs, says Veena Agarwal, professor of development economics and environment at the University of Manchester. The Indian government failed to order enough vaccines for its population or ramp up its vaccination program fast enough. But for months, the U.S. also blocked exports in crucial raw materials India needed to manufacture vaccines and stockpiled 20 million AstraZeneca shots, even though the FDA had not authorized their use. Although President Joe Biden has changed course, more editing problems. Look at this. Now and changed are smushed together. Come on, people. Sending much needed vaccine raw materials to India and pledging to export the AstraZeneca shots. It will take a long time for the country to catch up. Only 2.8% of the population was fully vaccinated as of May 12th. Yeah, and the AstraZeneca shot is kind of a second-grade shot. It doesn't work as well and has blood clotting issues. Although we do, I think if I remember correctly, we do understand how or why it causes the issue, and we can solve that blood clotting issue. But still, it's kind of problematic. And we've talked about this before, right? Bill Gates prevented, what was it? Moderna? It's like Moderna or Johnson & Johnson. I think it was Moderna. That they were considering of open sourcing their vaccine. And Bill Gates talked them out of it. And of course, talk about Finland, right? They had a vaccine at the end of 2019, something like that. And they were going to give it to like Pfizer and Moderna. And they said no because, of course, they want the intellectual property and the monopoly on it. But Finland also didn't open source their vaccine either because that's what they were considering doing. So, you know, the West entirely has the ability to give, you know, what India needs and other countries needs to, at the very least, just the formula for how to make the vaccines. But they're not going to do it because money. It's all about the Benjamins. Fucking capitalism. Murdering people for fun and profit. India's first wave, which peaked last September, was severe. By the time it started to dissipate, nearly 100,000 people had died across the country, according to official statistics. But in a country with a population near 1.4 billion, it also sent another message that India may have avoided the most damaging effects of the pandemic. Now, India's brutal second COVID-19 wave is sparking worries that the worst is still ahead, especially concerning our densely populated African countries. many of which have yet to experience large outbreaks. Version of the B1617 variant, the Delta variant, have already been reported in Angola, Rwanda, and Morocco. Many of the vaccines that could curb outbreaks in such countries were meant to come from factories in India, which has now ordered that most of its vaccine production to be used to meet domestic needs. The fresh outbreaks also threaten to set back plans for post-pandemic recovery. Nepal's vital tourism sector ground to a halt in 2020. To make up lost ground, the Himalayan nation approved a record number of exception permits for Mount Everest this year, meaning base camp is crowded with some 1,300 climbers, Sherpas, and support staff. And this is, again, part of the problem with capitalism. In order to compensate for the problems from the pandemic, they're endangering more and more people. As long as there is money, murdering people for profit is always going to be the thing, and it's sickening. It's just ridiculous that this is a thing. Shifting to resource-based economy would save all of this. It'd be shut down, everyone stay the fuck home, then everyone has access to food and everything they need. We do it for several months from the very beginning. Then we get vaccine. We open up slowly, asking social distancing and all that stuff, and staying at home as much as we can. And then vaccines come out, and then we're good to go. But people are, Republicans, especially on Fox News, are willing to kill their grandparents and kill their elderly just to keep the economy going. The economy is all that matters, and they're willing to dash the innocent on the rocks of profit just to keep it going. The economy, people don't serve the economy should serve the people, and that's fundamentally the philosophical problem with fucking capitalism. Monetary systems. Arrgh. All right. From Jacobin, the Ku Klux Klan was also a bosses association. We're all over the place today. All over the place. I don't think any of this stuff is on the same topic. No, where's... Well, Ku Klux Klan and Second Amendment, that's related. Almost. On completely different topics. Let's see, how long is this? Their stuff here is pretty long. Yeah, this is pretty long. This should probably most of the rest of our time. Actually, hold on one moment. I'm going to be right back. I'm going to go to the bathroom real quick, then we'll continue on with this. All right, here we go. Move this over here. All right. The Ku Klux Klan was also a bosses association. More of that just wonderful systemic and structural racism here. And this is from, July this year. KKK should be understood not just as a white supremacist organization. So what is your opinion on this eviction crisis? It's criminal that this should even be a thing. I mean, housing is a human right, right? I mean, that's the core of it. I mean, the government has had the ability to keep paying for it and keep dealing with it. I mean, eviction will make the COVID problem so much worse. And it's not just that, it's inhumane as fuck. I mean, Congress has known for over a month that, based on the Supreme Court's ruling that Congress is going to have to pass something, but Congress sat on their fucking thumbs and didn't do anything and said, fuck the people. I mean, the Democrats control everything, so they can basically pass what they want, but they're not going to do it because fuck the people. They don't get paid to help the people. And then with Blackstone gobbling up property, they're just waiting for this eviction moratorium to end so they can start gobbling things up, destroying people's lives, making billions off it. And there's gonna be such an amazing glut of profit for these companies. I mean, it's just gonna be horrific. It's gonna be so much. I think it's gonna be so much worse than the 2008 housing crisis. It's gonna be so much worse. Yeah, so Congress should have just extended the moratorium for at least another year and a half or something like that, and then keep people in their homes. And then we need to start shifting to public housing or municipal ownership of housing or something like that, because it's just ridiculous. People losing their houses, it just shouldn't be a thing. It's a basic fucking human right. And like I've talked about with my policies, I don't know what the full answer is. How do we handle housing as a human right? I don't know. I don't know what the right answer is for that. But I need to figure something out because I need to get my policies figured out as far as that's concerned. There's lots of options like a land trusts and co-ops and things of that nature that could own these properties, and we could. Did I add that in here? I don't remember if I did or not. Giving right of first refusal to tenants to purchase the property before a business of some sort purchases it, or a land trust, or a co-op or something like that. James from the internet said the states couldn't use any of the money to hire people to facilitate the rental assistance funds. States couldn't use any of the money to hire people to facilitate the rental assistance funds. Could be. There's like billions of dollars just sitting there for a rental assistance, and the states haven't been using it. I know, if I remember that correctly. So there's a shitload of money there, but the states aren't using them because they don't want to as well. Could be. I mean, the system isn't going to be put together in a way that's going to be easy to use because, they don't want people using the money. They don't want the services to help that much because having the system work well means that the BlackRock and these billionaires and corporations won't make as much money. And like me running for school board, I've talked to a few parents, and what they say is it's hard to know how to advocate for their children because the education system is such a fucking black box. They just have no idea how it works or who to talk to, and it's just you talk to someone and then they just say no, and then you don't know what the hell to do. So finding people to help you figure out how to get what you want or who to talk to it's a big deal. Because like I've had a parent talk to me, they've got a child who has dietary needs, and we want this program, but for other programs might also include it to have staff. Well, most likely because they didn't want people to use it. Too much money to be made in real estate. Because like BlackRock wants literally, I think they literally said they want to have a nation of renters. And part of it's, the Congress doesn't want stuff to work too well. They want to hobble it and only give you just enough to say, see, we did stuff, even though it screws people over. So like, yeah, some of these parents are trying to advocate for their children, and they don't know the programs, they don't know how much money, they don't know who to talk to. Like there's some like state and federal programs which give money to schools for students with special need diets, and that money isn't getting used necessarily for these special diets. Like one of our local school districts has a gluten-free kitchen, ours doesn't, and so some of the parents who have gluten-free kids who have autoimmune disease where they're gluten intolerant can't eat the school food because they don't have a gluten-free kitchen. And why is that? We should be getting money for that. These other schools are, right? So, and they don't know who to talk to. And so having part of the concept I have for what I want to do for school board is essentially having a whole website put together to unionize the parents, then having a certain area. So, like for specific issues that parents advocacy pages. So if you need to advocate for your kid on a certain issue, like food, here are the different programs involved. Here are the people you contact. Here's their numbers. Here's a link to the statutes. And so people, who specifically have children with autoimmune diseases and require gluten-free, that they can get together, have the basics that they need to start advocating for the child and the ammunition that they need to go and do that sort of a thing. And a lot of times, some of these programs will be made specifically difficult, like this rental assistance thing, so make it difficult to use so that people just don't use it. Just a second, wife again. Okay, there we go. Sorry, the wife again. Yes, so there you go. So when Congress puts stuff together, they don't really care if people use it because they're not there to help anyone. All right, and that's the problem. Like, there's an entire industry of people who just help people find grants and apply for grants because it's such an onerous thing to go ahead and do. And there's lots of money out there available for people, and it's so fucking difficult to get a hold of. And a lot of that money, the grant money, goes to waste every single year, just sitting there. No, not yet, not yet. You got some child problems. That's all. Not yet. Soon. We got about half an hour left. Yeah, and just. And part of that is going to be a lot of this problem, of course, is because of capitalism. People wanting to make money and subsidizing the rich and impoverishing everyone else. And we need to start shifting our government to be much more open and transparent and simplify things like policies, right? Our taxation. We need to greatly simplify our tax policies and make it so that all the information for taxes is sent to the IRS and that the average person can go to the IRS website and check everything and just hit submit so that they don't have to go anywhere. They don't have to fill out anything. It's just, some countries already do that sort of thing, like some of the Nordic countries, I think. That's something we can do, but why haven't we done that? And someone has recommended doing something similar to that, but the tax preparation businesses, the industry has fought against it because it's all about money. It's not, they don't give a fuck about making life better for everyone, which is what we should be doing. They care about the money, nothing else. My beautifully bold daughter. Exactly. Yeah, we had that conversation. And that's kind of what I'm hoping. And we're having this True Gaming Drew, how you doing? I have recently started to become a Marxist socialist due to Hassan. Okay, before I supported Ben Shapiro. Well, welcome to the left side. Ben Shapiro is a fucking racist tool. I'm glad you got out from under that asshat. That dumpster fire. Welcome to the left side. I haven't gotten into Marxism or communism, socialism that much, but I need to. I enjoy your stream a lot because it opens my. Oh, I'm glad. I'm glad. I'm glad to help. I'm glad you found some of my content of use. At some point, I do need to sit down and read the Communist Manifesto and Das Kapital. Das Kapital is so fucking big, and just the Communist Manifesto, just the way he writes, it's so dense. I enjoy academic reading, that's what I do. But that, oh my god, dude. No, I don't identify as a Marxist. I don't identify as that at all. I identify as an eco-humanist. If you want to see my policies, right here. It's over 200 pages for all of it. It's called The Interstellar New Deal. It's evolutionary, technocratic, radically progressive, humanistic, sustainable, and powerfully driven by a vision for a finally peaceful and spacefaring humanity whose eco-humanist ideals will result in the radical transformation of humanity to evolve beyond poverty, war, and suffering. Humanism is basically it's compassion, empathy, right? And also it's kind of a rejection of religion to an extent. It's, for me, humanism is humanity. We are responsible for our own salvation. I mean, it's gods aren't going to come down. Witches, unicorns, it's all about us. We created all of our problems, climate change, right? And we are responsible for fixing them. And it's also, at least for me, specifically bent into the concept of, at least for my humanism, it's bent in interdependence. It's one of the 8 philosophical pillars for peace. Humanity does not stand above and beyond the natural world. We are an integral part of the global ecology. So we need to find a way to live with and within the natural order of things and find our place in it, and not be a part of not only our own annihilation, but also the annihilation of all life on Earth. It's acknowledging and understanding that we are interdependent, not only with ourselves, but also with the natural world. This is the most important part of, honestly, my belief system right here, interdependence. You got a puppy? Nice. What kind? I'm a dog person. I don't like cats, but we have a cat, and as far as cats are concerned, he's a good cat. Makes me not like cats less, which is kind of nice. A Jack Russell Terrier. Okay, cool. Yeah, I prefer big dogs, and I would like to get one, but what I've come to realize is that the extremity of my introversion makes it very difficult, because I need quiet, and a barking dog around asking to do this and that would just be it would be a bit much. So good for you. Dogs are awesome. They're your best friend. Awesome. At least something good is happening here in COVID. Yeah, so there you go. So this is kind of my beliefs here. These are my policies here. Philosophical foundations here, global domestic policies here, then a world beyond poverty, war, and suffering is the stage 3. As I was growing up, we had a toy poodle. Where's the stuff I'm going over? Here we go. Yeah, we had a toy poodle growing up. We had him for 18 years, from when I was born to shortly after I got out of the military, or till shortly after I went into the military. Yeah, smart dog, super smart dog. Dogs are amazing. I like something like a German Shepherd or a lab or something like that, kind of more in that area of things. My parents have always had dogs. I always grew up with them. My mother currently has a, what do they have? Two tiny dogs. Hold on a second. Mom have dogs. Yeah, the wife's not sure either. I can't remember, but they're tiny dogs. They're not Jack Russell Terriers. I don't know. They're two small dogs. Yeah. Cool. Good for you. My dog whimpers when I leave him alone. Yeah, when you first get the dogs, they're going to have severe separation anxiety. I have no idea how to deal with that. Getting to the point where, I don't know. You'll have to talk to trainers and stuff like that to figure out how to deal with that. Otherwise, they're just going to bark all day long while you're gone. Tear things apart, pee and poop all over the place and stuff. But good luck with it. Good luck getting him trained up, because that'll be a thing. That'll be a process. Is he actually a young puppy, or is it just an adult teenage dog sort of a thing? Six months ago. Okay, puppy. Yikes. Well, good luck. That'll be fun. They'll of course be fun at that age, and also this is going to be a very important part of their growth in getting them trained. So good luck with that. Good luck. Enjoy the fluffiness. Good luck with the training. Dogs are awesome. All right. So what led you to Marxist socialist? Marxist. Yeah. What appealed to you about that? Not Marxist Leninist? Is that a thing? A Destiny, Assant, and Steven Crowder. Crowder is such a loathable human being. I haven't watched any Destiny. I've watched maybe just a smidge of Hassan. Just a smidge. Okay, well, Crowder definitely wouldn't be talking about Marxism or Leninism in any positive note. I'm assuming Hassan has been talking about it a bit, right? I think that's kind of what I've heard. He's a fashion model, but also talks. Oh, really? Okay. So what appealed to you about Marxism, Marxist socialism? It is a political axiom. Okay. Do you know what differentiates the Leninists from the Marxists? If that is a thing? I don't know. And why not communism? If you've gotten that far, I don't know. Because like socialism is seen as the transition point to get to communism, and it's more of an electoral approach towards getting to that middle stage. Oh, okay, you don't want Marx. Okay, all right, Alex. Okay, all right. Gotcha. So you're more aimed at the socialist. Okay. So what does socialism mean to you? Like I wrote a post on this talking about what socialism is. At least the 3 different ways we talk about it. There's more the technical socialism, talking about communism and socialism, and then there's the socialism as in providing a more of a welfare state, like the Nordic countries. For a few weeks. Okay, all right, cool. And then there's the socialism as in if the government pays for it, that's socialism. Depending on who you're talking to or whatever. Those are the kind of 3 core definitions that people use. So figuring out what the hell they mean when they say socialism is important. So you know what conversation you're having here. This will be a journey to get into doing that studying and figuring out what the hell all this stuff means, because there's so much written on this. Yeah, the reading, at least from the original stuff, is super dense. Super dense. I started reading the first few pages on my stream last year sometime, and it's just like, yikes. My brain is leaking out my ears. Yeah, socialism as the concept of making sure people are taken care of is very important. And we read an article earlier about universal basic income, providing that bottom level to make sure everyone, people if things go bad, that they're always taken care of. It is aligned with Joseph Robinette Biden. You Biden's a fucking imperialist and a corporate whore. Please say no. Please say that's not it. He's a neoliberal garbage face. I mean, oh my god. He's just so bad. Just so bad. I mean, Hillary was bad. I mean, fucking horrific. Bernie's good. I mean, it's like Bernie and the squad right now, they're it's hard to know where I stand on them. I mean, I saw Bernie and Crystal Ball had he came onto their programs on their program. It was Breaking Points. This is the only thing that I watch when I do Breaking Points with Crystal and Sagar, and it's hard to see Bernie Sanders within the Biden administration, because he is so much more of a principled man than the horror that the Biden administration is doing. You can just stop being a troll and just hang out and learn stuff. Well, yeah, asking about Biden is kind of, yeah, it's kind of hard to see what's happening with Bernie Sanders and the squad, working within the Biden administration, because it's I don't know. We'll see. Because there's an inherent corruption of having progressives become a part of the board of the new liberal democratic, right-wing Democratic Party. And once you become part of the system, it's difficult to maintain your objectivity and your rage, and to actually, stay there and tell people to fuck off and you're wrong, and still keep fighting for the good fight. It's difficult. So I'm not sure what to think about what's happening with Bernie or with the squad either. So I don't know. I'm conflicted. I love Bernie. I love the squad, but stuff is starting to fall apart. And the veneer of progressivism and dignity. It's just the veneer is coming off, and it's making people very sad, because all the hope that we had with Bernie and the squad, and we're seeing stuff not happening. I mean, it's to be expected. I mean, we shouldn't expect magic to be happening, but still, it's a thing. Oh fuck no! I wouldn't vote for a war criminal and a racist. Fuck that guy. Fuck that guy right in the left ear. I mean, seriously, there's no fucking way I'm gonna vote for Biden. Ever. Didn't vote for Hillary. Not gonna vote for Biden. I don't vote for war criminals and corrupt dumpster fires. I've voted Green Party since. What if he released your college? That doesn't change that he's a racist and a war criminal. I know Nina could be joining them today. I know. And again, the same thing may be happening with her as has happened to the squad. I like Nina. She's amazing. I hope she wins. And that'll be awesome. Hopefully it'll make a difference, but probably not much like has happened with Bernie and the squad, right? We'll see. That could be good. Relieving my debt isn't gonna. I mean, I'm already not making enough that I'm not really paying anything. But I shouldn't. College debt shouldn't have been the thing in the first place. Getting rid of my college debt is harm reduction. It's not actually solving the problem, because the Democratic Party is never going to do anything that actually solves any problems. If they actually give a flying fuck about the people who are doing their job, universal health care, universal education, getting rid of universal housing, universal daycare, right? Minimum wage increase, UBI, but they're never going to do any of that stuff, because they don't actually give a fuck about you or me, because they don't get paid to do anything for you and me. We don't pay the re-election campaign. The rich and the 1% do. Why the fuck would you not be a fan of universal health care? How can you call yourself a socialist and not be a fan of universal health care? I mean, I have a whole post started on this topic. Watch a video from Shapiro. Oh my God, you're killing me, dude. Okay, I'm not even gonna address that. If you're gonna even come close to quoting Shapiro, there's nothing to talk about. Fuck that guy. Oh my God. I'm gonna lose my mind. All right. Ultimately, you'll save at least half the amount of money that is wasted on universal health care. We waste so much money on healthcare costs every year, and all that money is just wasted. And we get shittier outcomes for it. We have lower life expectancies and shittier medical outcomes because of how fucking expensive it is. Now, if you were a person who was affected by not having healthcare, your story would be very different, right? So you're speaking from a position of extreme privilege. You don't have any healthcare insurance? Well, then oh my God, dude. The number that Shapiro must have done on you to have you even think to be against universal healthcare and yet not have it. Wow, you have a lot of work to do. You have a lot of thinking to do. Crap load of thinking to do. To not have insurance and to be against universal health care. I mean, that's just, it's mind boggling. Mind boggling that that's a thing. Well, but the moment you do, you're going to have hundreds, thousands and thousands of dollars of debt. You know, thinking you don't need it now is like saying, well, I'll never need it ever again. I mean, you're going to get in trouble, especially with COVID. How about if you get COVID, you go in the hospital, you're fucked with hundreds of thousands of dollars. I mean, it's you're young, right? Right, and that's the problem. You shouldn't have to be without it. You have such a short-sightedness to see that your future is much more than right now. You just happen to be healthy. In the future, you're not going to be. You're going to get sick, and then you're going to get fucking wrecked financially. Fucking wrecked. It won't be good. It won't be good at all. Yeah, and jobs, honestly, they shouldn't offer it. It should be universal health care. And like, I read this article a while ago on the difference between nationalized healthcare and universal healthcare, like, Medicare for all. Medicare for all is a good middle ground. I'm a driver, so I could get in an accident. Yeah, you could. You would be, not only would you be wrecked in your car, but you'd be wrecked through the healthcare as well, because you wouldn't be able to do that. I mean, that's, my God, dude, you're playing roulette. You're playing political roulette, and it's not a good look, and it's not good for you or anyone else. Don't do it. Don't give in to the dark side of the force. Whatever Shapiro has told you or Crowder has told you, they are wrong. And if you agree with anything they say, start asking the opposite, because they are a plague upon the world. A plague on all your houses. Okay. So you're beginning your journey to the left. You've got my policies. Here's my blog. I write about some political stuff here, especially on capitalism and resource-based economies. Dropped out of high school? Oh, that makes it even harder, dude. It's gonna be harder to get, a decent job with decent healthcare or decent anything. Yikes. Yeah, you're in a hard position. If you can go back and get your GED, at least start with that and do that. I know our education system isn't all that amazing, but it's important stuff. And I'm running for school board as well, and education is one of the 8 philosophical pillars. It is super important. Terrible grades? I did too. I got shitty grades too. I had graduated like a 2.7, something like that. Just like D minus, D, I don't know, D plus or C minus or something like that. I did too. And it is important because it's important because the less you know, the more easy it is for someone to take advantage of you, like Shapiro and Crowder, right? It's important that you understand the world as much as you can, so it's more difficult for you to be taken advantage of. College is a scam. It has its issues. Don't get me wrong. Especially in this country. I did go to college. I have a degree in bachelor's in computer programming and associates in networking. So that's my thing. But, even if you don't go that way, going to a journeymanship or an apprenticeship, that should also be free and that sort of a thing. So that'd be another way for you to get out there, get healthcare, and make some decent money, getting into an apprenticeship as a carpenter or a plumber or welder. Well, welding is actually pretty decent. You can make a shitload of money as a welder. I mean, a crap load if you're really good. So you can go that way too. You don't have to go to college specifically. That's my bias because I'm always in my brain, right? But the other side, is also available, as a way of, getting a job, getting insurance, and all the other horrible, stupid stuff we have to do to not die in the streets. Because fuck capitalism. Yeah, look into it. This is my I already shared it already. So this is my blog. I write about capitalism and resource-based economies and politics and stuff like that here. So if you want to read more about how I think about stuff, there's a lot here. I've got a decade of writing here on various topics. Investing in cryptocurrency and in Robinhood. So okay. If you spend a lot of time on, I was considering doing options trading before my hours got cut in half 5 years ago. But if you have the time and you can not just the time but the money, yeah, it can be a way. I made almost $4,000 on crypto. It's like 10 times what I put into it. I sold it as it was going up because of the Robinhood thing. But it can be. There can be one way of doing it, but it's going to be volatile. Good luck with it. Good luck with it. You can buy options. Yep. Okay. Could be. I just need to get money saved up again because I need to get account set up and that sort of stuff. It's going to be a while before I can do that. A lot of stuff going on here, unfortunately. All right. How much more do we? Okay, we got quite a bit here. Okay, well, it's True Gaming True. Thanks for stopping by. It's I've already reached our 2-hour mark. Going to watch YouTube. Okay, all right. Have a great day. Thanks for stopping by. Good luck on your journey. Good luck in healthcare. All right, my peeps. Reached our 2-hour mark. It's time for me to say goodbye. Any last minute? Where's your sub button? I dropped my affiliate status. Well, there should be a sub status. No, follow. There's a follow button. Yeah, I dropped my affiliate status so I could try and stream on Facebook and YouTube and Twitter and that sort of stuff. At some point, maybe I'll start it back up, but I don't know. We'll see. But thanks for asking. That's awesome. If you want to follow me, I've got Patreon below. That'd be one way of doing it. If you want to support me that way, or you can give direct donations as well. The donations button and stuff is down there too. I'm following since 1.5 years. Okay, awesome. Good. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, and if you want to support me financially, the links are down below to go and do that sort of a thing. That would be appreciated. Good luck with your driving and stuff like that. I Patreon. Oh, I don't think I have a thing set up for that. Hello. Public page. Here we go. There you go. So here's my Patreon thing. I recently redid it. Should be 5 levels. Yeah. And I also have yes, Patreon's down there. Donations are accepted. I've got merchandise down below too, as well as a thing. If you're really into that, I need to buy some myself. Specifically, I want to get a sweater with my Interstellar New Deal. No icon up here. All right. So last call for comments. Anybody? Before we call this a day. Keep me updated on your progress. Let me know where you're, how far to the left you're getting, how far off Crowder and Shapiro you're getting, because that'll be good. Give me some hope. Anybody else? Last call for comments. Last call for alcohol. Okay, everyone, thank you so much. And again, thank you for gifting me with your time. And if you want to, I stream on Tuesdays at 5 p.m. Central, Thursdays at 5 p.m. Central, and Saturdays at 3 p.m. Central as well. Again, Patreon's down below. Donations are down below. You can follow me on Twitter, Facebook, all the places down, or not down below, but up in the wherever it is. So, all right, everyone, have a great weekend, have a great week, and we will see you guys later. Bye. Thanks, Girly Bear. Thank you so much. Have a great week.
Just me and you, let's make up all the rules. Count to 10 and watch the stars turn blue. Watch the stars.